We have assisted me in the opining, my titans of tumult. First, Amy Ridenour, chairman of the National Center for Public Policy Research. Amy, good to have you back. How are you today?
Thank you, Ellen. Very good.
Good to have you, kiddo. Also on board, Robert Weiner, Democratic strategist, columnist, and former communications director for Clinton drug czar General Larry McCaffrey. He's also former communications director for Congressman Rangel and Conyers of New York and Michigan, respectively. Bob, good to have you back as well.
It's a pleasure, Alan, but I never heard more babble in my life. His liaison, if he'd pick up the phone and call 456-1414 and ask for the White House Chief of Staff, Dennis McDonough, he'd have his liaison. What kind of stupid congressman was that? And as far as Woodward's babble, Nancy Pelosi, who normally would be anti-war, has been Obama's lieutenant on this one and has been stalwart loyal. But by the way, this thing is working faster than the speed of light. The Kerry to the Russia prime minister to the Hillary to Obama, who just on CNN said, if we can do this diplomatically instead of militarily, that would be my preference. It's happening that way, and Syria is going to agree to that, and we will have this thing solved within a week.
Oh,
yeah, that is just too funny. Amy, let me help people out who may not have heard about this, because CNN and others have been reporting on it. You've got Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov suggesting that Assad's chemical weapons should go under international control as a way to dodge U.S. action. Then you've got Syrian
Which Kerry proposed first.
Then you've got, and then he said it was only a joke. I was saying it offhandedly. Didn't expect to get entangled like that, but let me continue. Then you've got Syrian Foreign Minister Walid Muallim. He's open to the idea, and now even the administration is saying that it's taken a hard look at this. However, you got to remember a couple of things. First of all, I think it's cute how White House Press Secretary Jay Carney has pointed out that the only reason why this has surfaced as an option is because of the military pressure brought to bear by the president, which is another reason why he says Congress should support the military option so as to maintain that pressure.
Yeah, that's what Obama said also.
But, Amy, what I want to point out is this. Since this news hit the wires, even Secretary of State Kerry has acknowledged that Assad could not be trusted to relinquish these weapons. So here's my question. Given that unless we first have an accurate count of what he currently possesses, we could never credibly ascertain what he forks over, whether or not that would be all there is. So why are we even entertaining this as an exercise? If you can't quantify a thing, then you sure as hell can't qualify it, can you, Amy Ridenour?
Well, that's correct. What's happened here is that our Secretary of State, John Kerry, said something off the cuff. He later said he was just speaking rhetorically, which, of course, is sort of a nonsense phrase, and which he essentially made, because the Secretaries of State cannot talk rhetorically, an offer to Syria that if they give up their chemical weapons, then we would drop our quote-unquote unbelievably small possibility of attack, or a small attack. What has happened here is rank incompetence. The Secretary of State has made an offer to Syria by accident, apparently without the President's knowledge or approval. Now the White House has to respond either by saying our Secretary of State is a dodo bird or that they meant it. Russia moved quickly because they like this offer. They're an ally of Syria, of course. Russia moved quickly to make the offer serious by urging Syria to accept it. And now we are in a situation, as Bob said, where Syria may say, yes, we accept. Now, the problem there, as you alluded, Ellen, is that we have no way to know if they do it. And since they have moved chemical weapons, according to reports, into civilian areas, near schools, all over the place, we just have absolutely no idea how to know that they
exactly. And if we don't have a count tethered to a standard, then it's a bunch of crap.
Okay.
So Bob, let me give it to you one more time for people who are listening in Radio Land to catch on. Okay. Again, given that unless we first have an accurate count of what Assad currently possesses, we cannot credibly determine that what he does fork over would be all that there is. And because we can't do that, we would be hard-pressed to take him seriously or put much trust in this. What's that famous Russian saying? Dovier no provrier, trust but verify. Yeah. There's no empirical way of verifying that everything he would fork over is all that there would be to be forked over. Bob Weiner.
Okay. Well, a couple of things. First of all, I thought that was Reagan, not some Russian saying. Who said
no, that was Reagan quoting a Russian saying. Dovier no provrier, right. Trust but verify.
All right. Here's the deal. Exactly. Here's the deal. First of all, we have Assad so boxed in now that if of all, it's amazing what will happen when you don't have the votes in Congress, what you can come up with creatively, and this one kind of gets us somewhere. What this has gotten us to is everybody can declare victory, but it's only a victory if the international community verifies and we have inspectors in there. Syria will have to agree to that, and they will. But more to the point, this puts Assad in a box of he can't do this again. If he does it again, nobody will give him another chance. The missiles will fly. The entire world is now boxed into this. He will have broken everybody's promise from Russia on down. And so this is a actual diplomatic solution that might, in fact, box Assad in to not doing chemical weapons again. If that's what we have accomplished here, then victory.
But, Bob, you can't credibly determine how much he has forked over unless we first have an accurate count of what he currently possesses. You can't say it doesn't matter if you don't have a count tethered to a standard.
Well, you're missing my
it's
point.
nothing but a masturbated exercise. It doesn't matter.
You can't do it again is the point now.
Assisting me in the opining, my titans of tumult, Amy Ridenour, chairman of the National Center for Public Policy Research, also Robert Weiner, Democratic strategist, columnist, and former communications director for Clinton drug czar General Barry McCaffrey. Amy, to you, I want to pick up on this again. We were talking about the Russians. This is adding a bit of a wrinkle to some of the back and forth, although it's getting to sound a little bit silly on some levels because we have to be in complete denial when looking at the rudiments of math if we're just going to swallow what the Russians are offering just because it might be convenient for this president to if you will, dodge a rather rough encounter or exchange with Congress. More specifically, you've got Sergei Lavrov from Russia. He's the foreign minister, suggesting that Assad's chemical weapons should go under international control as a way to dodge U.S. action. Then you got Syrian Foreign Minister Walid Muallim. He's open to the idea, and even the administration is saying it's going to take a hard look at this. However, since this news hit, again, even Secretary of State Kerry has acknowledged that Assad could not be trusted to relinquish these weapons. So here's my question again. Given that unless we first have an accurate count of what Assad currently possesses, isn't it fair to say that we can't credibly certify that what he forks over is all that there is? So you got to wonder, why are we even entertaining this exercise? Again, if you can't quantify a thing, how the hell can you qualify it? Amy Ridenour.
I think we're entertaining it for two reasons. First, because the Secretary of State accidentally sort of made the offer and the Russians moved on it so quickly to make it seem more real. By the time the Russians have responded, it's like it's real. Number two, I do think this White House is desperately looking for an out. And I'm sorry to say so, Bob. I think in the prior segment when you said this is all good, I think that was looking for an out in your capacity as quote-unquote Democratic strategist. We are in a position, I say we now as the United States of America, where we're between two weak positions. We're projecting weaknesses on two levels. The question is going to be, unless the third comes up, which way we're weak. We may be weak in that the president is turned down by Congress and either acts or doesn't act, but they've already said if he does act without the permission of Congress, it will be, quote-unquote, an unbelievably small attack, which, of course, would mean no effect whatsoever. So we'll look like idiots. The flip side is that we accidentally make an offer that will take this massive human rights abuser with numbers of weapons we can't quantify at all, and we'll take his word for it almost, that he's going to be a good boy now and turn him over to the United Nations that's half incompetent and half anti-American. Either way, the United States looks like a complete weak actor here. And there's nobody to blame but Mr. Obama, because as bad as John Kerry has been, and boy, he's been one for the record books, he isn't the top guy. I know Obama doesn't have this sign on his desk, but the buck stops there.
Do I get to respond?
We sure do, Bob. Go ahead.
Okay. It almost doesn't matter, as Hillary said when she was testifying, that what happened in the past, if we stop it in the future. We may have to take the hit because there aren't the votes in Congress on what happened in the past. But let me tell you something. If we agree to this deal, Syria agrees to this deal, Russia agrees to this deal, and then Assad does something more in the future, he will be bombed to oblivion, and Obama will not ask questions of Congress first. That's what this allows if we go with this deal.
What are you basing that on, Bob?
common sense.
Common sense does not give. Whoa. Common sense in no way, shape, or form gives you license to trust the United Nations.
Who said we have to? Who said we have to? All we're doing is setting up a vehicle where Assad has been so embarrassed by this now, probably because as smart as we thought he was, he isn't, and he didn't calculate the international response. And he's got to know now that if he agrees to this deal, that it's a last chance for him, and that Obama doesn't. What Obama has established, because he ain't no dummy either, is that he shouldn't have gone to Congress for approval on this thing.
Okay.
And so he doesn't need to in the future. And Congress won't blame him if he bombs if Assad violates the next round.
Alan,
go ahead.
Let's forget it isn't about who gets blamed. This is about future security of the United States of America.
That's correct.
And what you are leaving out, among other things, is if we were to, let's just assume that your wild guess is right, and Obama suddenly becomes Mr. Warman and bombs Assad into the Stone Age because he uses chemical weapons next week or 6 months from now. Let's just pretend you're right about that, even though that's not his history. Then what happens? Who fills the vacuum? One of the reasons people are opposed to this is it could be Al-Qaeda. You're just forgetting that. You can't
nobody's saying that we've bombed Assad out of existence, but we've bombed him to totally incapacitate him.
Okay, incapacitate him, and then who takes over?
He's still there. He's still there.
Well,
hello, I answered your question.
Guys. There's another conundrum for the president. And that is that a large swath of rebel fighters are aligned with militant Islamists in addition to al-Qaeda terrorists currently engaged in the slaughtering of Christians. Okay, Bob? Even as the Associated Press reports, quote, the hit-and-run attacks on the ancient village of Ma'ulula, one of the few places in the world where residents still speak Aramaic, highlighted fears among Syria's religious minorities about the growing role of extremists among those fighting in the civil war to topple Assad's government. I'm guessing this is one of the reasons why the Pope has asked the U.S. Not to attack. I'm not sure how much sway Francis I is going to have. But here's the thing. It looks as if the current strategy embarked by the president is saying, listen, you can go ahead, Assad, and you can slaughter as many people as you want. Just please don't use chemical weapons. Sure he did. He illustrated. No, he didn't say those words.
Beyond that, it's a civil war.
His actions illustrated it. Why is it the 100,000 slaughtered by conventional weapons are somehow less important than the 1,400 slaughtered by chemical weapons? That is the final conundrum against which we find ourselves pressed. We have no choice but to acknowledge that.
Because you don't want to see the videos of people twitching and foaming at the mouth and being tortured that way. The world since 1917
How is that any uglier than watching? How is that any uglier than watching an 11-year-old girl have her throat slit? Or a 6-year-old boy have his skull crushed by a moving tank.
I don't disagree.
How is any of that? I don't understand. There's got to be some contextual proportionality to your argument, Bob. Otherwise, you just sound very, very silly.
Are you saying we should go into every country that has a civil war and just stop them from doing it? Fine, but that's not.
No. Your projections are not my grounds to defend. I said what I stated. To be inferred as nothing more nor less than what I conveyed. I'm telling you that a person sounds like an idiot if he says, okay, you can slaughter up to 100,000, we're going to tolerate that, but you kill 1,400 by chemical weapons, well, that's when you're going to have to worry about U.S. intervention. Translation, the president is saying, as long as you only slaughter your people by conventional weapons, you don't have to worry about U.S. intervention. However, if you use chemical weapons, buddy, you just better watch out.
What are you proposing?
I'm saying at one point or another, what I'm saying is at one point or another, when determining what constitutes valid intervention for some atrocities and not others, the numbers killed should be at least as much of a measure as the way in which they were killed. What am I missing, Bob?
So what are you proposing anywhere in the world? What's your
that you answer my question is my proposal. When does the number of people killed become as much of a measure as the way in which they were killed? Can you answer that question?
Nathan Powell